Hi, I'm Glenda Cedarleaf, and in this bedtime story, Claire shares experiences and memories of winter and reflections on the fortitude of older, wise beings, including an 82-year-old sheep farmer named Hanna. So just allow yourself to become comfortable in the ways that you know best. Feeling the support of your bed, the softness of your sheets and blankets and pillow. Knowing that right now you can simply relax and allow this story to carry you into a deeper place of calm. We begin with two quotes. The first from the Bible, John 10:12. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. The second is by Rumi. The power of love came into me, and I became fierce like a lion and tender like the evening star. Love said, "Stay with me." I said, "I will," and became a fountain in the sun's light. It was the first day of the new year, and Claire looked out her window to see that the freshly fallen snow had frosted the trees and the ground, and even the bird feeder. The clothesline was coated in clear ice, so the morning sun made it glimmer. There was that familiar lack of sound, a stillness that wet snow brings to an early winter morning in the country. Claire settled back into her bed, feasting her eyes on the beauty of nature in the winter. She wanted to focus on her intentions for the year, with a reflective time to review her life. And as she began this process, memories of winter soon emerged. In her mind, she now traveled back to the historic blizzard of 1967, when she was 13. Over the course of almost 3 days, 2 feet of snow fell on Chicago, causing the busy, windy city to become still. 10,000 cars were abandoned as the snowdrifts grew to 10 feet high. She remembered walking down Foster Avenue, which usually bustled with nonstop traffic, as it had transformed into an expanse of white, free from any blemishes of tire marks. The street lights reflected a soft glaze that changed the gray city into a magical winter wonderland. She and her friend spent hours bundled up in snowsuits, sliding on their bellies along the sidewalks that had become like tunnels enclosed by high walls of snow on either side. And just for that snowy weekend, their teenage preoccupations were replaced by a journey into the land of childlike make-believe. They pretended to be fierce soldiers, secretly hidden as they crawled through the tunnels. The power of that blizzard to change the landscape of the city and her life for those few days was something she'd never forget. The blizzard was even powerful enough to enable her father to stay at home from work, to be with his family in front of the fireplace, while Herman's Hermit sang the song, "There's a kind of hush all over the world tonight." Then she recalled another blizzard, this time in Minneapolis. She was an adult then and had recently moved there after almost 30 years in the warm South. Claire wanted to experience that blizzard in the most intimate way, so she bundled up and went to the woods. For almost 2 hours she sat, partially buried in the snow, and meditated, while the winds howled and the icy snow blew across her body. On that day, instead of her usual resistance to being in the cold, she prepared herself well with warm winter clothing, and there she fiercely and tenderly sat in the middle of the blizzard, at peace. That same winter, she and her sisters traveled to Wisconsin together. During the day they cross-country skied, and later that night they swam in an outdoor infinity pool, while the snow sparkled like glitter fluttering down over them as they swam. Next to the pool was a large fire bowl. The flames flickered as they mingled with the snowflakes. The steam from the hot pool water floated up and surrounded them, and in the quiet they swam through the water. It was a magical experience that 4 sisters shared one cold winter night, creating a memory that would become forever etched in their minds. Ah, these winter memories all returning to be relived on this January day. Claire felt like she had just finished a satisfying meal as she savored the details of her reminiscing. And this next memory was especially unique. The memory of meeting with a truly remarkable being. It was Christmas Eve, and Claire and her husband drove to a small town in Minnesota with a very quirky name. It was called Now Then. Now Then, Minnesota. A perfect name for a story about memories and mindful presence. In this town was a sheep farm run by Hanna. Each summer weekend, Hanna would gather flowers and drive them in her pickup truck to the farmer's market to sell. She sat behind a table there with bouquets wrapped in newspaper. Hanna loved connecting with the people at the market, and that's how Claire's husband first met her. Hanna was originally from Germany, where she lived as a child in the Black Forest. She came to the United States as a mail-order bride at the request of a man who said that instead of marrying a lazy American woman, he wanted a hard-working German wife. Hanna's family was contacted, and she expressed a desire to come to America since after the war, there were very few single men available for marriage in her country. Her family made the arrangements, and she traveled to the U.S. She lived and worked with her new husband on the farm in Minnesota. He died young at 42. She remarried eventually, and together they had children. In time, her family grew. eventually to include 27 grandchildren and 11 great-grandchildren. Hanna's second husband passed away years later, but Hanna continued on to live and work on this beautiful sheep farm by herself. On this winter night, as they arrived to visit her, the farm was a sight to behold. The sky was a deep royal blue. The stars and moon were brilliant. And below this night sky, on a small hill, stood a herd of sheep, their shaggy white-gray wool even more brilliant against the sky. Claire got out of the car and walked over to the sheep. They looked up at her, and then at one another. She pulled out her camera and took a photo that she still treasures to this day. She and her husband went up the steps to the back door and knocked. The door opened, and there stood Hanna, with her very long white hair. Most times she wore it in a bun, but today it was framing her face and cascading down to the middle of her back. Hanna's piercing blue eyes twinkled, and when she grinned, she looked like a feminine version of a Swedish tomte. "Come in," she said. They entered the kitchen and immediately smelled the combined scents of her kerosene heater, the wood stove, and some pastries she had made. The walls of her house were decorated with drawings made by her grandchildren. She was so very proud of her family. They all sat down in her dining room. Hanna brought an old percolator coffee pot and served each one a cup. Once again, she told stories of her childhood. She shared what it was like to be in the Black Forest during World War II, riding her bike on the country roads, trying to avoid all the potholes that came from the bombs that had been dropped. Claire and her husband listened to the stories, sipped their coffee, and feasted on Hanna's presence. It felt like they had stepped through a portal into another reality, so fulfilling they didn't want to leave it. Hanna asked them both about their lives, and when Claire's husband voiced concern about a situation, Hanna took his hand mid-sentence and said, "Let's pray about it." She bowed her head and began a conversation with God, speaking as she would to a friend. Hanna tended over 20 sheep, feeding and caring for them, and vigilantly protecting them from coyotes. Hanna also had cattle and lots of feral cats. She knew them all, and they knew her. Each had a name. Hanna was both gentle and strong, fierce and tender. She knew how to run a farm. She was courageous, loving, and earnest. Hanna's authenticity reminded Claire of her Hungarian religion professor in college. He, too, had those piercing blue eyes and a similar accent. He would look at the class and challenge them, saying, "Are you living an authentic or inauthentic existence?" It was this authenticity that captivated Claire. She recalled the older men and women who lived in the nursing homes where she used to work doing mental health evaluations. All those amazing people whose bodies were wearing down, but their spirits were vibrant and their stories were captivating and inspiring. Claire felt as if getting to know these old souls was like unwrapping a gift. As each layer emerged, another tale of wisdom or humor was shared. They would reminisce about their lives, and Claire felt blessed each day for the opportunity to learn from them. Claire often wondered how the world would change once these people who were born before technology ruled the world, people who lived through the Depression, who knew how to persevere in ways that her generation had no frame of reference. Claire's thoughts then turned to her own mother, who passed at almost 96. She was amazed at her mother's patient kindness as her aged body made day-to-day life a challenging journey. Her mom lived with the reality that each week another one of her fellow residents, her friends, would leave this world to go to their heavenly home. Her mom was fierce and tender, grateful for her loved ones, and quietly brave as she faced the never-ending accumulation of losses that came with growing older. Claire reflected on that beautiful quote by Ram Dass, "We're all just walking each other home." On this wintry morning, Claire stepped outside and watched the birds eating at the bird feeder. She then took a walk in the beautiful winter wonderland outside. The temperature was mild, and she knew that the snow would melt by the afternoon. So she savored the freshness of white coating that blessed her world right now. She decided that this year's intention would be to allow the authenticity of those who had gone before her to inspire her life, to help her know how to be fierce and tender, that whenever she felt stuck, she would remember these beings who lived their lives with courage and perseverance. She closed her eyes and envisioned ancestors eagerly ready to inspire her as she stepped into the mystery of another year of walking this earth. In the midst of the cold, she would receive the warmth of the support of these wise beings into her life, especially during winter's harshness. I close now with a quote from Albert Camus and a poem by Gloria Burgess. In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. Whispers at dawn. Hush now, listen. Lean into the voices that whisper at dawn. Stand gently, proudly, on the broad bones, the great shoulders of the grand mothers and fathers who dreamt you and held you, keep you, and walk with you, stroking your face as dawn paints that canvas of sky. So this is the end of the bedtime story. I wish you good night and sweet dreams.